All right, let's continue on the reg. I just went out and I machined these two components. Let's zoom in here, I'll show you. And that little dot in the center is because of it's got a hole in the center there. So they're nice and flat. That's been machined, so we're going to reassemble this. So let's take some stuff off here. I do have to say that the O-rings so far have been pretty decent O-rings. I am concerned that as they're getting more stuff manufactured overseas, as they start getting the issue that some other companies have overseas of just getting bad spec O-rings. It happens. It's not the manufacturer here's fault. They spec a certain O-ring. Overseas just takes care of them and they put whatever they want in there. But I just, right now I'm finding out that the O-rings, for the most part in this reg, seem to be pretty decent. So I'm not too worried about that. Put that guy in there. You want to make sure that O-ring feels good in there. It's not overly tight. Get this one. We're going to lube it up. I don't put a lot of lube on this. That's like way too much. Of course it's in there where I can't get it out. There we go. I'm going to drop that O-ring down in there. Put the rest of the lube on this guy. All sides. Let's drop this O-ring down in there. It should sit flat at the bottom. There is a little, these are kind of tapered. I like putting the wider end in first. Let's sit flat, there it is. The larger end I like putting first. I think that's correct. I'm going to drop this guy in. I want to make sure when I drop it I can feel the O-rings grabbing, and they are. Nice grab there. And then I'm going to wipe off some of the material there. And then this is going to be screwed into the body here. Okay. I get my, I like getting this, and there's this thing that I'm going to snug down. You don't have to. This is what I do. I grab here on the inside and just snug that, because I don't want to, when I'm twisting the body, I don't want to take that apart. I don't want that to come apart. I'm going to put this guy, I'm going to start it down in there just to keep things together. I still have this little screw out. And then just rub a little bit of lube on here. This is going to slip on there. Make sure you feel a friction O-ring there. It feels good. There is an O-ring down here that you can rub just a little bit of oil on. This is just more of a static O-ring that doesn't seal anything really. It just keeps it from kind of coming loose. Is there a notch on there? I'm going to look on the inside here. I don't know if there's a notch in there or not. That's maybe a different machining. I'm always finding different machining stuff that's going on. Like these don't look like, they look like this. Maybe change this. I don't know. Let me see. It's just the lighting. No, I think it's just the lighting. So what we're going to do, the goal here is I'm going to leave this set screw out, okay? And I'm going to set this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get some purple Loctite, okay? Yes, purple Loctite, and I'm going to put a little dab will do me on some of this. I'm going to kind of rub it around these threads, okay? Because I want to Loctite this guy, and it's purple Loctite, it's low strength. So I'm going to put this in until I feel it stop. And then I'm going to screw this guy on the bottom. And what I like to do is setting these right around 350 psi. Okay, so I'm going to get my fairly decent gauge. This has actually been tested recently, so I know it's fairly accurate. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to grab my testing rig. This may be a little off camera. And let's see, that's on, that's on. And when I want to start screwing this in, because screwing it in is going to turn it down. So I'll start off, I'm going to screw it in a little ways. Let's see what pressure I'm at. Okay. Low pressure. We're going to back this out. You can work kind of quick. I want to set right around 350 psi. So I get right around 350 psi. I'm going to degas, return on, make sure I'm right there, right at 350. Okay, and I'm going to let this, we're going to set this aside. I can take this little adjuster screw and I can run it up into the back end of this. I'm just going to just loosely get it in there so I don't lose it. And I'll feel it, I'm just doing it with my fingers really light, I'm going to feel it stop. Okay, that's fine, let it right there. We're right at 300 still. Nice and fast. If I degas, should go right back to 300. We're at 300, everything's working great. That's what we want it to do. I'm going to let this Loctite dry. So I'm going to let things stay under pressure. I'm going to move this off to the side and we're going to move on. Put this off to the side. Let it do its thing. Pull the gun back here. The reason I do that is what I find out is that as you degas and then throw the marker in your bag and then bramble around and go and you know, go home and leave the marker in your car and it's rattling around, that black adjuster screw, which I'll call the governor screw, that's the one, that's the same. When I set it at 300, that's the max that regulator will pressurize to, unless the regulator fails, and it's going to go over that. And then the silver screw, when I screw it in further, it's going to lower that pressure. And I know when I set it right around 350 that it's that silver screw has some range there, and it will do that. That's why I've asked, I think Nova should just change that black adjuster, the governor screw, just make that the adjuster and just make it out of brass. I think it would be outstanding. Brass doesn't get beat up from an Allen key, screwing up all the anodize on it, looking like garbage. It's self-lubricating, and then they could put a little friction O-ring on there somehow that allows that there's tension when you're adjusting it in and out. There's always tension on it. So when it's degas, it's not going to just vibrate loose out of position. They have on their other markers, they have a locking ring on it, which is great on those other markers because they're really using a lot of parts from those other markers. But anyway, that's what I would do. I don't know if they're going to do it. I thought about just getting them made, but then again, I'm just not going to. It doesn't make any sense to me at this point, and just selling them as a upgrade. But no, I think they should do it. I think it's quite frankly, it would probably be cheaper to manufacture it that way than to make that aluminum part and then go and buy set screws for that. I think you would save money or be a net equal if you made it out of brass, because you still got to anodize that aluminum piece. You know, so anyway, so moving on, let's go to the lower tube, and we're going to do a couple things. We'll pull the frame off to the side. One thing I have noticed, and I do check these when they come in, I want to make sure the safety's working at all times, and it's not. Sometimes I've had these lock, and I've had to machine this brass part and fix it. But for the most part, the frames are nice. The on-offs I haven't seen any issues with except thread tape. The newer ones, they've resolved that issue. So, oh, and this looks newer on the bottom. Let me grab another one. I have another on-off around here somewhere. Hold on a second. Maybe they've always been like that. Let me look at this one over here. I think they've all been like that. So, yeah. I was just looking at the end here and looking at those little flutes. I thought I had one that didn't have these little flutes off to the side. They may have changed that. They do random changes like that to fix issues, which is great. But the poor person that bought the gun that didn't have that had those issues, you have to call, and they'll probably send you a part or have you send the gun back to get it fixed. I don't know. That's up to them. That's their business. Put that off to the side. Really disappointed with the like these stickers have this goobery stuff on them. Really weird. Let's see. I always kind of check this. Good, that's Loctited. The lug on this one is flush. I've had, this is one thing I look at, I've had a lot of these where the lug was sticking out the bottom and beyond the bottom of that. They use a cone, it's a copy of the ShockTech cone lug. It's interesting that they do this. I'm not a fan of using a cone lug, and I'll explain for this style of frame. Kind of the meta thing that was out there was using a ShockTech cone lug on an Inception rip frame. Is the combination is really good. The Inception rip frame, the trigger sear is much wider, and the idea behind these cone lugs is on like a gunfighter, it's a cone lug to a cone lug, and it's a surface area thing. But what the problem is here is you can potentially, this lug will move left to right, which sometimes you can get lug skip. And if this hammer, this guy moves left and right, it will. You can see that. That eventually that's going to wear, and it's not really worth it. But we won't know until you see further use of these if that's going to be an issue. We're going to take this off. We're going to take this off. Set that stuff over here. Some screws over there. I am going to take off this bottom guy. I think it's this guy right here. You want to be careful when you're taking this stuff apart. And the reason I do this, I want to get some of the stuff away from here. Is there's a little stainless steel, that little depressor thing. You don't want to lose that. And if you drop it like this and knock it out, it may fall on the floor. Just be cognizant that you want to do that. Inspect to make sure the O-ring's good. This one is. That's still tight. I do look at this angle here, and this looks overbent to me. So if I can find a nice right angle. What do I have? What do I have that's a right angle? It's a right angle, any of this stuff? No. Trying to see what I have here that has a nice right angle on it. Yeah, it's overbent. It's probably not as critical on this type of setup, but I will take this out and I will square this up and make sure it's bent right at a 90. Not the end of the world here. We're going to just take the screw out. They are Loctiting these in here, which is good. Set that off to the side. While we're at it, we're going to take the front. I'm just going to take the front pneumatics off. This is stuff that I normally do. When I'm doing a Docfire tech or the tune on this. Just easier to work with this stuff outside of the gun. And just keep in mind, these are just Autocockers in the end. Okay, they're just really Autocockers. Set that off to the side. We're going to take this guy out. Oh, did they get an O-ring that fits? I don't know. one thing I don't like is I don't like their IVG. This O-ring back here, and let's see if they've changed it. You got to use a funny size. No, there's no friction to it, so it's like it's pointless even having the O-ring. It doesn't do anything. It's the idea of the O-ring on here is to provide some friction. So let's see. I just got some new O-rings in. Let's see if they're any bigger. Oh, where'd they go? No, they're not. Those aren't. Let me try these other ones. It looks like it's a 113. Oh, no, it's like a 112. Actually, my 112 looks bigger. My 112 is a little bit bigger. Let's see if there's any friction when I put this in. No. So it's no use putting that on there. It's a waste of an O-ring. It's probably going to be a metric, and probably like a 3 millimeter. I probably need to order some. I do. Let me see if I put a big one on there. This is a 113. It's a little sloppy. Let's see how. Oh, you know what? Okay, there's the meta. Use a 113 on this, and it provides a nice non-loose friction. It's a little loose on here, but all it is just a friction. So that's the fix on that. So that's done. We're gonna go and drop my thing in here. We're gonna drop this guy out, and see, that feels really loose. I don't like that. We're gonna drop that out, and this is a trick that I do. I'm gonna pull this guy out, and they basically did what ShockTech does. They copied that design where they have this set screw that goes through the bottom here. And I don't know if they had this in here right. I always like this adjusting screw. This is your tensioner screw for your cocking rod. And I like that facing the bottom, so I always will put the lug in where it's pointing the same direction as that tensioner screw. Yeah. I want this to have some tension on it. I don't want it to come loose. I don't want, that's just timing that's, if this rotates on here, then it's, your timing's going to come off. So, and these are, if you are curious, these are hard, not hard, these are just regular type 2 anodizing clear on this. Just an aluminum lug. Alright, so I'll show you something. I'm going to take, this is a Craftsman 1/4 inch drive, 1/2 inch, works fine, it fits perfectly down in there. I'm going to put it down here. Let's see how tight that is. Oh, it actually feels like that one's tight. That's good. Yeah, it was all the way just flush, so that's good. I'm going to back this out. That goes there, that goes there. Yep, this is the newer valve, so it's the, at least the newest version that I know of. It's got the, it's a more shiny green, more of a, not a dull green. But this gets modified. So we can put the body off to the side. We're going to look at this guy. You want to make sure these O-rings, you feel like they have a nice movement in here. I do like to lube these. You don't want to lube this O-ring. This, all it is a nice friction trick that holds that on there. There's no reason to lube it. If you lube it, then you potentially could have that come off. I replace these guys. If you guys want these, you can order my Docfire spring kits, and I replace them with the white. And grab one. where I put them. Here they are. And I think, let me feel, I did spec all the springs for them. They're using different weight ones. And I don't think there's a need to do that. They did change the design of two things. They made the port in this a little bit smaller than the first gen, and they made the port in here a little bit smaller. I don't know why. Actually, I know why. But I actually fixed it so that wasn't needed. I am testing on modifying this, but I'm not doing the customer's gun yet. So that service will be later. But we do some modifications on here. And the one thing I do want to show is I want to get a factory valve. Let me go grab one real quick. Factory valve. All right, let's show you guys something here. And this is, you want to keep in mind when using these Nova valves. So here's a factory valve, okay? And we know that if we line these up, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, try to line these up, it'll be kind of tough to do this, is we're going to see that this is a lot much further, right? So whatever spring I have compared to here is going to be different to here. This is going to be, it's going to protrude about an 1/8 inch further. So you're actually going to tension, you're pre-tensioning this spring more than you would if on a valve like this. Now, there's just putting more tension on it because this valve is longer than this valve. Kind of show you. Try to line things up here. That's about, it's literally about a good 1/8 of an inch longer. And that's an 1/8 of an inch more compression on that spring. Okay, so it does change things. So when you think you're using a really light spring, it's actually, as this spring compresses, the force increases. It's not as much right there, but as you get down, it's a lot more. Now this valve doesn't open, it doesn't open all the way. The hammer doesn't pound it all the way open. It opens a fraction of that, very little. But now it's using, this spring is already pre-compressed. It's taking more force to open it. So, and then there's some things that we do that I'll get done here is, if you notice that this spring, I just can't slip it on there. I can't slip it on the end. When it's on there, it's taking up essentially 2 coils, and it's encapsulated those coils. All right, so if I can even get it on here. Okay, and so those coils are now gone. So now I've taken even more out of this. And if you notice when I push that on there, look at the angle of that spring. Okay, what that does is that puts a side load on this valve. So when it's in there, it's putting a side load. And by putting a side load, if you have a leaky valve, most likely your spring is not square on here. And it's pushing this little valve seat, because this valve is, what's happening is air pressure is going down the small little hole in the front there, in that little hole. And whatever air pressure that your system's running at, let's say 250 psi, let's say 300 psi, whatever these things are running at. Well, that pressure is going down in there, and it's coming out this little hole, and it's pressurizing essentially this little gap here, this little chamber. And it's trying to push this valve open. It's using the surface area of this back area, and with the amount of psi air on it, that's pounds per square inch, and it's pushing this, trying to push this valve. It's trying to push against this spring. And so if this spring's trying to push it closed, and it's trying to push it open, it's basically putting a side load. See how that valve's moving open at a side load? And then sometimes it won't seal right. So if you have leaky valves, is because this spring is too tight on here. So what we do at Docfire Paintball is this gets machined down. And we're going to go do that. So I'm going to push pause and I'll be right back.